Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Daincast, this time in the Train in Zain files. And I'm not sure what we're going to call this series yet because we have a whole bunch of them and it's got to have a picky name. We've got to have a snazzy name for this series of games. They are the infamous games from Zain, the UK Protoss player, known in this game as Kaji. He is going to be doing some funky builds for us, showing off his raw power of his mechanics against some pretty high Masters players on the EU server. We've got his opponent is the red Zerg in the bottom left-hand corner. This is a ladder game. He is called disOrder. Now, the last few games that we saw from Zain, we haven't seen any actual games where Zain played at his full strength yet. All we see from Zain is that he goes for an absolute ton of sentries. He takes bases all over the map. He drops sentries in every single base. He makes observers all over the place, and he abuses the immobility and lack of multitasking from his opponents. And this is, make no mistake, this is really, really difficult to do. Sentries don't do a lot of damage. They do have some spells, and they can force field out if there's no massive units from your opponent. But as long as the opponent has detection, and as long as the opponent has some decent hard-hitting units, it's really, really difficult for the sentries to win a fight. You have to have overwhelming numbers. So we are going to today step in the mind of Zain and become students of this style and try to learn how he is able to do this against people who are better than me. They're higher rated than me. These guys go all the way up to 5.2k MMR on the EU server. These players that Zain has beat with this build. Has Zain lost with this build? I mean, personally, I've never seen it. I know it is possible. I know he probably has lost his fair share of games, but the fact that he's able to win games against just about anyone with this style shows you that StarCraft may seem like it is a game about strategy. It may seem like it is a game where you can think about what unit to build, make the correct composition of units, but actually at the end of the day, if you are making more of units, if you are making them all over the place, if you are multitasking like a god, you are able to do just about anything. Now, disOrder, he doesn't know about this. He doesn't know that that's what he's in for. I think he would probably be playing differently in this game if he knew for sure going into it that his opponent was mono-battling him. This is basically a one-way mono-battle from Zain, but he doesn't know about that. He's going to have to scout him. He's going to have to put the pieces together for himself, and he is floating around with this Overlord, but I don't think this Overlord's going to be able to escape the wrath of this first Sentry coming out. He is already queuing out another one. He's getting his gases very early to make sure that he's going to be doing this. No tech coming out from Zain, just trying to get those sentries out so far. The third base is coming down from the Zerg player, but as he's taking his third, so is Zain. He needs to overwhelm him. He needs to have lots more economy. He needs to be taking lots of gases all over the place because obviously if you're only making sentries, you need to have a lot more of them in order to win a fight. Looks like this Overlord does actually escape. I underestimated how low damage the sentries do. They do almost no damage, but if you have enough of them, if you tickle someone to death, it is possible to kill them. So this Zergling is going to pop around. This is going to be bad luck for Zain, actually, because this Zergling is very studious in checking for proxy locations. We'll have to see if he does end up checking all the way around the map to this location. This is a very cheeky proxy base. If this is found by the Zerg, it's going to die almost immediately. Zerg will just make a bunch of Zerglings and kill it. There's nothing to defend it. There's no cannons, there's no pylons, anything like that. There isn't even a pylon here. There are only 3 sentries and the main base of Zain, and he hasn't even taken his natural gases yet, so he's at a very vulnerable stage with this build. Obviously, being very early on is the hard part with this build. You've got to survive from your opponent without losing, with only, you know, units that do almost no damage. You're going to rely on things like cannons and shield batteries. So in order to stop his opponent from being suspicious and in order to keep himself in an economically advantageous position, Zain is going to take his 4th base now at his natural 3rd base. And I expect that we'll see lots of cannons coming down. I like this in the corner here, just nestling these sentries into the pocket of these minerals is going to give them a fighting chance against any kind of Zergling run by or flood. He is going to put down a photon cannon rather than going for a battery. Obviously, you need the cannons to give you that fighting chance because you don't have the damage. The sentries will help zoning out the units, and they'll help to scout where they are, and they'll help to tickle them a little bit. But cannons are going to be that defensive unit that helps you to stay alive. And Zain now around, needs to scout with this hallucinated Phoenix to see exactly what his opponent is doing. He needs to know if he's being all in or if he's going to be playing a macro style. It's going to be a fairly early lair and a Roach Warren from our opponent, but he is gassing up. He's got 3 gases now, might go up to more, but he's only on 44 workers, which is a dangerous number. Might allow him to flood roaches, which is probably exactly what Zain wants in this game, to be honest. It's easier to deal with a low economy Zerg by just building a lots of defenses with good decision making than it would be if he was just droning up, because there's not really any way for Zain to be pressuring his opponent in this game. He only has 3 sentries. He can't move across the map. I don't think his opponent has put that together yet. I think his opponent is thinking about how to kill him based on if he was a normal Protoss player who was normally expanding and normally trying to play a macro game. But that is not the situation. That is not the timeline that we are in. We are in a much darker timeline where you are playing against someone who is potentially just toying with you. I mean, at some level, this is a level of troll build. It does show off your raw mechanics. It does show a lot of valuable things, but there is an element of trolling here because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to be losing to someone who makes one of the weakest units in the game en masse. It must be a frustrating thing, but if you have an open mind, you can learn from these games. These roaches are going to try and pop in, but there are 2 cannons here. Everything gets force fielded off. Now these roaches are trapped, and the ones in the back are not able to find. This looks like almost a Wings of Liberty game with so many force fields tickling down the roaches in the end, but the Zerglings come in for a flank. This is looking very dangerous for Zain. Even though he had these defenses with great force fields, he's still going to lose quite a lot. Shows you how vulnerable this is. The Zerglings do pick off 1 or 2 more sentries, but with the force field, Zain's going to stabilize, but he does have this 3rd base still mining, and there's really not a lot of mining happening for the Zerg player. So this still puts Zain in a better economic situation, but his army is looking pretty abysmal. 17 army supply of pure sentry against the 70, now 66 army supply of the opponent. But with these force fields, Zain is tickling down these roaches in this corner. So many of them are going down, but now the cybernetic score is going down, which is going to stop Zain from taking any more sentries. He's reliant on only cannons and the sentries that he has available, but it looks like the Zerg is going to think he's pushed his Protoss opponent onto 2 bases, realizing there are lots of cannons there. He is going to back off and drone up. 17 drones in production for our Zerg player. Again, not knowing about this base is going to be his downfall. This is going to be the problem here. He's not playing as though he's playing against a 4-base Protoss now. He's playing against as though he's going against a 3-base Protoss, and so he's been cutting a little bit of corners, going for a very aggressive attack, and I mean, to his credit, he has now started to drone. He's adding a 4th base, but Zain is looking to be in a better economic position. Still only 58 drones from the opponent, but better upgrades and better army composition are still going to be the case here. Zain forcing himself to stay on sentries here. It's looking pretty scary, but he's adding more cannons, making it look like he's just defending hard on 2 bases. Really nice force fields from Zain, but these biles are exactly what you want. You can just zone these out. You can cancel the force fields, but look at these absolutely nearly flawless force fields from Zain. He's just going to pick away at this army, kill just a few at a time, nearly gets another one, but not quite. Now the slow zones are going to trap this army even more. It's going to make it very difficult. The biles go down to break these force fields. Zerg army looking like he's going to engage on this, realizing he has the advantage away from the cannons, but Zain, also playing the cat and mouse game, is just going to back off, keep his sentries alive, and take his kills with him. So now Zain is evened up the army supply quite a lot. It was 70 to 17, and now it's only 48 to 37, which is only 11 supply difference. Looking pretty good for Zain here. He is adding forges, he is adding lots of gateways, and he's adding a robo, which I suspect will be used for observers and warp prisms only. He's going to be very honorable. He's not going to be making any immortals or anything like that, even though those would make this game much, much easier. But look at these force fields from Zain. Once the Zerg goes into the slow zone, he is going to be trapped, and he's going to lose 3 or 4 roaches, losing another Ravager here. Biles going down, but he's forcing the Ravagers to use Biles only on the force fields, which is going to mean that he's not able to Bile sentries units themselves. And Zain is going to have to retreat in the end, even though he got some fantastic trades. I think he's out of energy now, so he's going to have to back off to the safety of the cannons at his natural. But this Zerg is in for a bad time when he sees what's happened at the 3rd base of Zain. I don't think he has scouted this yet. Now he has scouted the cannon, so it's going to give away the game for Zain. He's going to have to put 2 and 2 together. You cannot make this many sentries off of only 2 gases. There's just no way. You're not able to warp in 5 or 6 sentries at a time if you are stuck on 2 gases. A recall of the probes here is going to bring the probes from the main to the 3rd base of Zain, which is going to allow him to keep mining efficiently, spending all his resources in cannons and sentries. This is what's going to allow him to stay alive, even against this very scary army composition. This is something that would kill Protosses of any level, even if they were going for a sensible army composition. But Zain showing us just how you can fight this. If you segment it into little chunks, you can tickle these Ravagers down, and quite a few Ravagers go down. This is looking terrifying for the Zerg player. The Ravagers are filing things down, but all of the Ravagers are now dead. Only 61 workers for the Zerg to the hefty 92 workers from Zain. He's on 4 bases. 3 of them are mining completely, and this Overlord is popping around going, oh no, where is he getting all these probes from? I thought I was ahead economically. I thought I was playing against a 2-base Protoss, but in fact, he is up against a full-fledged Sentry trolling 4-base Protoss, adding even more cannons now, even at the 4th base, realizing that this is a likely candidate for attack. The creep is almost spread here now. And now Zain is looking to be on the offensive. He's completely wiped out. He's even taking a 5th base here. So this is going to be his cue to start attacking in the 4th base of this Zerg player. He wants to do some economic damage. There are some Hydras here, but they are completely overwhelmed by this overwhelming force of Sentries. With the hallucinated Colossi and the Great Force Field, Zain is managing to trade very effectively against this, but if the rest of this Hydras do join, this could be dangerous. But Zain is just going to force field them out, stop the Zerglings from coming in, and kill this base. He might be able to recall, he might be able to leave. He can do whatever he wants because there's nothing to break these force fields now. Zain can just use this as his playground. He's got a map editor with him. He can make force fields wherever he wants. He can make as many of them as he wants. And now he realizes he's done the economic damage. He's going to retreat to the choke point, force field out to safety, kill a few more Zerglings, but most importantly, he needs to retreat to the safety of his cannons and live to fight another day. So disOrder now is in a little bit of a tricky spot. He is going for a Hydralisk army, which is obviously scary, but at this point he has to have realized that he's playing against someone who's going for only Sentry. So what do you make here? I mean, obviously teching up to something like Ultra, this is great. I don't know if Banelings are going to be the play against someone who's making a million force fields. Maybe if you drop them from Overlords, but I'm not really sure what his plan is here. Maybe he's thinking this is just the mid-game strategy. At some point, you have to realize that he has been bamboozled, and his opponent is not going to make anything else. Maybe he feels like there is just some kind of chance that Zain will transition into something more sensible, but luckily for, or maybe unluckily for him, Zain has no such plans. He's going to hallucinate these Colossi, but they're not real. He's going to send them in, but looks like these Hydras are going to be bamboozled. Again, they're going to fall for it, try and DPS these down. Obviously, you want to kill anything you can, but it's only a hallucination. It's only a dream, man. It's all Inception. It's not real. You need to focus on killing the things that are actually hurting you, which are these Sentries, and even though they don't hurt a lot, they are going to kill you if they manage to DPS these down for long enough. A million force fields go down. There is a great concave of Hydralisk here. This is looking very scary. So much macro coming out from the Zerg players, putting up quite an impressive fight against this. The probes are even being pulled from this base. Zain realizing things are looking a little bit spotty here. He's going to take his 6th base at the other location, transfer the probes there, give up on this base, and not bother fighting it anymore. There's too much damage from these Hydras. The Sentries can fight them for only so long. They need to retreat to the safety of the 3rd base, but the Hydras now have cleaned up everything at the proxy base. But I think this base is already mined enough. Beautiful wall of force fields from Zain is going to give him a fighting chance against this small group. Zain realizing, though, my cannons are right here. He's going to look to push me once again. I might as well retreat. 2-2 upgrades coming down for the Zerg player, and now he looks to push in this base. Zain is no stranger to these kinds of pushes, so he's going to retreat, let the cannons do most of the work, along with a few force fields. Not going to let him close that gap. Zain retreating almost everything. With this Colossi hallucinated, just speaking, he's trying to bait him into attacking it, but it's not going to happen. He's going to focus on these cannons first and foremost, but there are so many cannons, so many batteries. This Hydra force is just getting whittled down. Now he's down to lower supply than Zain for just a second. He is macroing, making a lot of Mutilas, realizing this might be a strong build against somebody who's making only Sentries. The Mutas might be difficult to deal with, but Zain's got so many bases, and now he's got a big drop in the main base of many Sentries being warped in. He's going to be able to force field off this ramp. The Mutas might pop out, but there's so many Sentries here. With a Guardian Shield, they might actually be able to trade decently against this. The spawning pool even going down, more Sentries being warped in, a Guardian Shield. This attack at the 3rd base of Zain is getting cleaned up very slowly, but now the Mutas pop right into the Guardian Shield Sentries. There's so many Sentries here. They actually trade pretty well against this. The force fields on the Hydralisk are going to allow him to trap these, and now Zain is killing everything in the main base. Another Muta is going to go down if Zain focuses it down, and now the 3rd base is still alive. There's only a handful of Hydras, and the Mutas have been cleaned up. This is looking like our Zerg player is in dire straits. An observer here still spotting to see if there is a base here, but no such luck for the Zerg player. He's focused on his aggression, but I think that's going to be his downfall. He is attacking into a wall of cannons. The Hydras are trying to engage us, but there's only 4 or 5 Hydras, and there's like 15 sentries here. There's so much sentries, so much energy, hallucinating Colossi to bamboozle them. Does realize this is now a hole that I don't want to be stuck in, so he's going to recall, but he's already done so much damage. The lair has gone down, still 2 sentries tickling away at this spire, but I think the damage has been done. The Zerg is only mining off of 1 or 2 bases. His brain cells have even died. How much damage do you have to do in a StarCraft game to be reaching into your opponent's brain and squishing their brain cells? Shows you the power of the Sentry. It's such a powerful spellcaster. It's actually become a transcendental, I don't know, he's become a wizard. He's able to transcend the boundaries of space and time and reach into his opponent's mind to murder him. Such is the power of the Zain, the mystical warrior wizard. Hydras are moving out into the middle of the map, trying to do a little bit of damage, but this Hydra force is looking pretty pitiful, to be honest, at this point. The sentries might be able to overwhelm him with a few force fields. He's got double the army supply now, 90 army supply to 50 army supply of his opponent. He is force fielding down and segments off quite a few Hydralisks while attacking at the now 5th base of the Zerg, but with a few Hydralisks, he is going to chase this away. But now Zain engages with the majority of his sentries, force fielding off the remainder of these Hydras and forcing the Zerg to an even lower army supply. Now over double the army supply is Zain attacking here, and he is not playing any tricks anymore. He is able to just bully the Zerg out with the raw power these sentries have. He'll be able to force field off and kill this base for free once again. He could retreat if he wanted to. He also has the option to just fight here if he wants a few hallucinated Colossi, bamboozling the Zerg once again. Zain realizing, I don't have to take a fight here if I don't want to. I've got a base right here. I've got so many more bases. There is no reason for me to throw away my army. I will use it as a tool to expand once again and kill expansions of my opponent. But disOrder has taken another base here, which is going to keep him mining. But Zain has gone up to 100 workers, which is double the amount that disOrder is on. He just doesn't have the economy anymore to deal with this. He doesn't have that full-fledged 3 or 4 base economy he would need to overwhelm the Protoss, and he's been bleeding off units left and right. A few more Hydralisks do go down. disOrder frantically trying to bring his units back. Another counterattack, though, from Zain on the other side of the map is going to do some pressure here, trapping all these probes, but the Hydralisks catching up with this might actually be able to do quite a lot. There are a decent amount of Hydralisks here, but the sentries are actually trading fairly well against this, but look how little damage they do. So these sentries are going to get cleaned up. It shows you just how weak the sentries are against Hydralisks if the Hydralisks manage to get a fair fight against them. But a fair fight is something that is going to be rare in this particular game. So many spells being used, so much pushing going on. They're being bullied right out of the fight, and only a few Hydras are allowed to into the club at a time, which is going to mean that once they are let in, the bouncers are going to bust them with a very, very, very weak taser. A few more go in, and disOrder's not feeling happy about this. A big warp in of sentries is going to go into 4th base. 3 locations being hit at once, although one of them only by hallucinated Colossi. disOrder saying it's not cool doing troll builds and then winning. I disagree. I think it's very cool. It shows you the power of the Protoss. It shows you the power. Joking aside, it shows you the power of mechanics. The reason why Zain won this game, it wouldn't have mattered what he was doing. It's because he has shown the superior mechanics. It has shown, he says, the only reason I won is because you are, and I'm not going to say the R word, but you know what he means. And Zain is admitting, yeah, dude, I don't have an ego. That's fine. I'm doing stupid things, man. And if you want to believe that, you go ahead and believe that. But I think Zain's play here shows there's probably something wrong here, right? I mean, if you lose the Mass Sentry, there's a lot of things you could have done better. It's the multitasking, it's the decision making. I think the decision to attack into 50 cannons is probably where disOrder loses this game. If he defends and takes lots of bases, I think he's in a great position. But because he didn't scout well, because he didn't scout the proxy expansions, because he attacked into a million cannons and whittled down his army, he was able to trade unfavorably, and Zain has put himself in a position to win here. disOrder saying, I stopped playing halfway through, and Zain is saying, no, I beat people multiple times. A little bit of a back and forth between these two players. It's basically a foregone conclusion at this point that Zain has won this game, but they want to have a little bit of a back and forth. disOrder says, rematch me with this awful strategy. 1v1 me on the blistering sands, you absolute noob. I will beat you again. disOrder saying, you won't because you can't, and Zain says, no, I can, and I will prove it. Which is going to bring us into our next game. I have on my hands, another replay from Sir Zain against the same opponent. Raise your dongers in chat if you want to see game 2.